You may or you may not have watched my video on removing the locking wheel nuts, where I ground them out using a Dremel or a pair of Dremels, because I kind of killed two of them. So this is going to be a quick one about an inherent design flaw in the Dremels, and how we can go about kind of bodging and fixing and mucking around with them. So this applies to the Dremel 3000, if you recognise that, and also the old style, this one I think is it 395? Is it a 395? It's all upside down. They are identical inside, the 395, this old one, and the 3000, you know, one of these new ones. Absolutely identical inside. All they did was change the case and change the part number. So they both went a bit intermittent, quite badly intermittent. Now the first thought, of course, is always brushes. You can replace the brushes on these Dremels. The little spanner that you get for doing up the collet with the tools in on the other end, that little screwdriver actually fits. It fits the hole for the brushes. It is designed. Look at that, see? So brushes is the first thing, but I checked the brushes on my old one. This thing's 20 years old. 20 years old. Brushes were definitely worn, yes, but not, they were still there. This newer one, my father-in-law's, that I borrowed and also broke, it's only got a few hours use on it, so the brushes were nice and long and no problems at all. So it wasn't the brushes. There's talk of dead triacs, there's talk of other issues, other known issues, but the one that I had doesn't seem to be covered. You go on YouTube and you can't find anyone talking about this. So what happens is it works and then it stops, just dead. Sometimes it works full speed only, sometimes you get all the different variable speeds, but it just stops. Now, here's a clue. This one, at the moment, is turned on at full speed. You wouldn't believe it, would you? Have a look what happens if we touch it. Bear in mind, this is plugged in to 40-volt mains, so, you know, usual precautions. So obviously, just unplug that, there should not be, is there some light? There should not be sparks coming from in here. Now the sparks you saw down in there, that's the commutator. The brushes sit either side. You would expect sparks there, but you would not expect sparks there. So why are there sparks there? Let's do a bit more disassembly and I shall show you what it looks like and why it's a problem and hopefully how we can fix it. So I have here the guts of the device. I've stripped out the rotor and taken the case apart and the brushes out, and there's a load of YouTube videos that show you how to do that. It's very, very simple. I'm not going to get involved. So what is the problem with these? I think it's the only reason I can think of to aid simplicity of manufacture. It's made in modules, so you have this part at the back here which just unplugs, and then you have the switch and the brushes module here which also just unplugs. Now I guess the reason that they do that is because it makes it easy to assemble. You just have the parts and you push them together. Any unskilled operative who you can pay, you know, nothing, can just stick all these things together, so that's great. But the problem occurs, you have these small pins that have got to transfer the electricity from the switch module to the stator of the motor, and what seems to happen, I don't know if you can see how well we can see this, but can you see on here, I don't know if we can get it to focus. Can you focus? Please, can you focus? Go on, you can do it. You can see the scorch marks and the damage on that pin, and it's also the same on this pin as well actually. It's got some scorch and some arcing damage. And in here, if you can see, they're like little Lucas style crimpy connector things that they just slot into. And I guess what happens, in fact, you can see it, and this is the one that was sparking. You compare it to this one here. Those two, can you see the difference? That one's a lot wider and it's a bit blackened in there from the arcing and sparking as well. So in my other video, I alluded to the fact that these things are kind of hobbyists' tools. So they are designed for people to engrave things and polish jewellery and make, you know, model railways and that kind of stuff. Sort of intricate work that's not entirely too demanding. I was using them to grind out some hardened steel bolts on a car, and it was kind of too much for it. But obviously, that each bolt took about 3 hours to grind, so it was on for 3 hours, getting hot. High vibration, heat, extended use. These little connectors obviously do not like that. So that is the problem. How are we going to fix it? I've got a couple of ideas. I haven't done this, by the way, yet. I've just bodged them to make them work. So I've got a couple of ideas of how we can do a more long-term fix. So a thing happened, as they so often do. I was thinking about ways to improve the connection with that little Lucas-style spade connector that goes on from the stator to the switch assembly. The first thing, and this is what I've been doing with these units whilst I was doing that other job, they would fail. The first thing I'm doing is just squeezing together the end of the spade type connector thing. Actually use 2 screwdrivers, one either side, and push them together and tighten them up. So I'm trying to go for a more permanent repair with this. It's not going to be pretty, it's going to be a bodge whatever I do, because I'm messing around with the way it's built. But anyway, a thing happened as I was squeezing the one we looked at together. It broke off. Can you see it? There's the part of it, just there. That's half of the spade connector. So okay, so now we're in a situation where the unit is definitely unusable because I've broken it, so I can be a bit more dramatic. So what I've decided to do, this is the one that was broken. And what I've decided to do is to use the Dremel to open, another Dremel, yes, another one over here, that's the third one, to open up, focus, to open up the plastic on the top of it. Where's my little poker screwdriver? Open up the plastic on the top to expose this is the broken one, so that's what's left of it, that's the outer side, and there's the inside. Here's another one I've done, and this still is in one piece, so you've got, this is the outside, and that's the inside. And my plan is to expose that, grind the plastics back, as they normally look like. This really isn't going to work, is it? They normally look like that. Look at that. So you've got all that plastic encasing it. So I've removed the plastic, which exposes my terminals, and the idea is, let's try and do this with 3 hands. Oh, I haven't got 3. Let's try and do it with 2 then. That when one places one's switch unit in here like this is difficult to try to do it with not enough hands. I can't get the bottom one in, the top ones are going in. Well, anyway, I'll just show you. So the idea is that when this pushes home, there is going to be enough exposed parts of the stator where I've ground the plastic away, and of the switch contacts, that I'm going to solder that in place, because it can be permanently joined together, because I am not assembling these things in a manufacturing plant in wherever it is they're manufactured. The idea of those Lucas-style spade connectors is that the assembly is just pushed together. 1, 2, 3, next, 1, 2, 3, next, and you could knock out 1,000 of these or 10,000, whatever it is, a day. So we're going to remove the plastic, expose the terminals, solder everything together, and that might work. So pretty it is not, but you can see now we're in a situation where the pins from the switch are in contact with the sockets, if you like, on the stator. Now what's interesting is every one of these, as I ground it, it actually broke off on the top. they were cracked. They all had a little crack in them. Now, whether that's a little gap where it's manufactured or whether they have cracked due to vibration and metal fatigue, I don't know. Anyway, the point is, they're all in contact. It's held on with a bit of sticky tape. And we're going to try and stick some solder in there and see if we can solder them together. I've cleaned up the pins and I've cleaned up the sockets again with the Dremel. Everything's nice and clean. No reason it shouldn't solder. Let's see what happens. Of course, the wire for my soldering iron is far shorter than the wire for the Dremel and doesn't quite reach the vise. So I'm doing this a little bit cack-handed. But anyway, what I want to do is get a bit of solder on there, and I want to do it better than Crafty Board Panda or whatever they're called, because they really don't know how to solder on those things. I try not to melt too much of the plastic. Okay, that would appear to be a soldered joint. It looks reasonably clean. Let's do this one. You'll notice when I'm soldering that I'm heating the metal and feeding the solder in, rather than blobbing it all on the end of the iron and trying to dab it all on and all the horrible things that you see people do on the interweb. There, aren't they? Not my finest or prettiest, but that should work. Well, what do you think? Yes or no? I reckon yes.